This podcast is part of the Midwest Podcast Network. Find out more about our other shows and how to support our network at MidwestPodcastNetwork.com. Welcome to Gone to Texas, a podcast about AMC's Preacher. My name is Alex, and I have not read any of Ennis and Dillon's Preacher.
And you know by now, my name is Nick, and I have read it all.
Today we'll be discussing Season 3, Episode 5 of the series, titled The Coffin. While we will not be spoiling any of the comic and by extension any future plot lines of the show, we will be discussing the details of the series through Season 3, Episode 5, so pause our show and go catch up before you listen to the rest of our episode. You can find more episodes of our podcast at g2tpodcast.com. We're also G2T Podcast on Twitter, and you can send feedback to g2tpodcast@gmail.com to tell us what you think of our podcast and share your thoughts on AMC's Preacher. That's the letter G, number 2, letter T, and the word podcast.com, or on Twitter or at gmail.com.
Well done.
If you enjoy this show or any other show on the Midwest Podcast Network, please consider heading over to patreon.com/MidwestPodnet. That's MidwestPodnet, and pledge as little as $1 a month to make our network even better. Special thanks to Jason K., who is pledged at the level of $10 per month. This week, a little bit of feedback. I asked people what they thought about this episode, as we would be recording a little bit later. I wanted to make sure people knew about that. But Martin did reply. He said, this season's really had its foot on the gas. It shows that the Hell storyline was just padding. I think he means in Season 2. Of course. Only had shots in Ian Collette's credits of Eugene going home and finding a crater. And he said, I'd be okay if the Saint just beat Hitler to death with a foot-long sub before the opening titles. I would probably be okay with that, but I also would just be I'm still baffled at the fact that Hitler is in the credits. That our friend, what's his name?
Noah Taylor.
Why do I always forget Noah Taylor's name?
I don't know. He's one of those actors that I could totally. I don't forget it, but there are other actors like that whose names I can never remember, and I'm always just like Rob Hubel was that for the longest time. I could never remember his name.
I usually remember Noah Taylor based off of how much I know you like him.
That's good.
So I don't know why I've been struggling to remember his name, but that's the thing. It's the fact that Ian Collette and Noah Taylor's names are in the credits, and we have not seen them in episode 5.
And Jeremy Childs isn't.
Yes.
Which is so weird.
It blows my mind.
Yeah, we're halfway through. We still haven't seen them.
That's crazy. And you know what? Like we've been saying, I'm mostly okay with it, I think. But
that's the thing. When they finally show up, I feel like it might be a welcome injection of something fresh at that point, or it might be too much. But you know what? No, I think I'll love it, because that's the way Arseface is in the books. He'll pop in for like an issue or two, and then he's gone for like a long time. And then when you least expect it, he'll just show back up again. And he's never like consistent. And I think that I might really like it for that. That's fair.
I guess I just want to hear more on the business end of it, of like, these guys are in the credits.
Yeah.
The credit sequence of the show, and yet they get so little screen time. I just feel like that's a very unique situation.
The second half of the season, they might be much more dominant.
Yeah.
We'll see.
There was a Comic-Con trailer that came out. I did not watch it because I don't want to spoil.
Yeah, me neither.
But maybe there's hints of that in there. Seth also wrote to us on Twitter and said, as pertaining to this episode, he said it was absolutely amazing. So many book things that were touched on. Great episode. Thank you guys for writing to us on Twitter.
Fellas.
And we also got a message from Joseph. He said, generally I enjoy it when Jesse and Tulip get to show off their comic book style badassery, and they were both in full effect this episode. He's speaking of the Coffin.
Yes.
The bit with TC sneaking up behind them like Elijah Wood in Sin City was great.
I like that comparison.
That's a great comparison. And he said, I love Star's hats, which is something introduced this episode, but we'll get to that in a little bit. He says, plot-wise, it feels like the Allfather actually thinks that Humperdinck can serve as the Messiah with the Grail's help, and Star doesn't. I'm looking forward to learning more about the Allfather. I agree.
Oh, yes.
He said, do you guys understand what Jesse did with the cigarette? We saw all the parts in such detail that I feel like we were supposed to understand the plan, but I don't get it. Did the cigarette get sucked up and set off the fuel tanks, which resulted in an explosion that somehow got sucked back down to the coffin? I think that's what you're supposed to get out of it. It's not very likely, but neither is a lot of stuff in this TV show.
I couldn't quite follow because so we'll talk about this later. Let's put a pin in this.
I think Joseph mostly got it. His final point, he says, Tulip's plot was easier. I assume that Jody gave her the pen to work on the crossword, and she picked her cuff lock, then locked it on him. I disagree with that a little bit because she kind of shows off the pen to Jody as like oh, look, this is how I got out.
Yeah.
So I think she picked it out of his pocket after he like fell asleep or something.
That seems possible.
And then swapped the cuff. But anyway, thank you, Joseph, for writing in.
Thanks, Joseph.
Thank you to Seth and Martin for tweeting at us. And those of you out there listening that have not tweeted us or emailed us this season, please do.
Yeah, just do it already.
We want to hear your thoughts on Preacher.
We had a good conversation going in the Discord, which I only leapt into like 30 minutes ago from now. I was very late getting to some conversation this week, but I don't want to necessarily get all my good thoughts out in Discord and then have the episode be a little stale for those guys that are
I kind of use it as like me refining my thoughts or trying to understand what other people got out of it.
Yeah, I could see that. It is fun though to call back to things we've already talked about briefly. So
yeah.
Anyway, next week I'll be more on the ball.
All right, let's get into our recap. This week, the teaser. Tulip gives up on the perfect opportunity to kill Gran'ma to go ask Jesse why he won't kill her. As Jesse starts to explain, they are interrupted by a few thuds outside of their room. And as Jesse and Tulip prepare for a fist fight, TC gets the jump on them by coming in through the ceiling. TC, Jody, Jesse, and Tulip tussle to the tune of Werewolves of London, and Tulip manages to best TC, but Jesse is not so lucky with Jody. Tulip attempts to hold up Jody, and Jody puts Jesse down, but Gran'ma starts choking Jesse, and TC gets the jump on Tulip, resulting in her giving up and Jesse ending up in the coffin at the bottom of the swamp.
The coffin.
Yes, the coffin returns. How did you feel about Werewolves of London in the fight scene?
I mean, listen... No matter what you do, if you integrate Warren Zevon into it, I'm gonna be real excited.
Sold.
Yeah, absolutely. I love him, and I think it was Bruce maybe mentioned that. I think he said "Play It All Night Long" was the song he would have rather heard. He thought it would have been more appropriate. Werewolves of London is funny because it's such an unusual song, even though everyone kind of knows it, even if they don't know it. If you really like listen to it like lyrically, and if you really like think about what the chorus is and everything, you're just like, how is this song popular? How's this a song? Like it's just it's so silly. But it was fun. You know, as soon as it kicked in, I was like, this is funny. Like, it felt right to me. They could. He's the kind of guy. He's the kind of songwriter that I feel like a lot of his stuff could be in this show. Like he kind of. Like these kind of storyteller, singer-songwriters are some of my... I actually... This is so stupid. I just put this together about myself recently, actually, because I was thinking about some of my favorite musicians, right? And I was like, a lot of the guys I really enjoy tend to be like... I mean, I love Nick Cave, I love Leonard Cohen, I love Warren Zevon, and these guys all have a lot of things in common. But the biggest thing is that a lot of their songs aren't like... Because I was listening to like the radio, and all the songs are about like... It's just like... relationships or like you know like whatever pop songs is always about a girl or it's about a boy and things not going well or whatever, and I was always like, yeah, those are fine. Like obviously like love is one of the great universal things we're always going to make art about and we're going to sing about. But what I love about these three guys is they write songs that are just stories, like fresh like tales that have a beginning, a middle, and an end, and they do it in 3.5 to like 5 minutes. And I think that's so remarkable, and it's something that you don't hear that much anymore. It feels like it was a kind of born out of like the 60s, a lot of this like folk kind of thing, and it's just kind of going by the wayside. And I'm probably wrong. There's probably lots and lots and lots of current musicians who follow this same kind of model. They just don't rise to the top, you know.
Yeah, I mean? they're not the songs that make it to the airwaves because they're not like the poppy chord progression and the subject matter that everyone relates
Werewolves
to.
of London did, and that's
Werewolves of
so
London
funny.
did, but it's one of those things where like that song is just so damn catchy.
Oh, for sure.
That it makes sense that one would break through, I think. But
and he has so much work that so anyway, getting back to how it ties into the show, I feel like guys like that they have songs in their catalog that could fit like the kind of like themes and tones of like what Preacher's like.
Yeah.
And so I think Warren Zevon, although it is fun to hear Werewolves of London, I'm like, man, you could take a lot of his other work and like apply it, and it would probably be really cool.
Werewolves of London is kind of it's a very flippant look at something supernatural on its face, at least, which I think is very much Preacher.
Sure.
You know, and on top of that, it's just got that feeling of like a bar brawl to me too.
Oh yeah.
And
it's got that kind of jangling rhythm to it.
Absolutely. So it seems like a very good pick for this show. I think
I'm probably gonna have to deep dive into a Warren Zevon conversation in the Discord, but I'm really excited at that prospect.
Yeah.
Anybody who isn't familiar with him, just honestly, I hate recommending like a greatest hits for an artist necessarily, but it's a good way to get to know somebody.
Yeah.
And his greatest hits, I forgot what it's called, it is very good. He probably has one or two of them. I used to have one on CD. It was really great. He also has. I want to see if we can find it.
Genius, the best of Warren Zevon, is one of them.
Yeah, the best of Warren Zevon is the one that I had. I think it was just called that. Anyway, it's a good way to get a good idea of you may know a lot of his songs and didn't know that you knew them necessarily. Yeah. Anyway, he's phenomenal and was a really, really talented guy and very funny. I wish he was still alive. He passed away probably like at least 10 years ago now. And he was like one of the most frequent returning guests on the Letterman show. He used to come on all the time because he and Dave were like pals. And he always had really, really funny, witty insights and funny things to say. I think his actual last live performance in front of any sort of audience was on the show. And he played Rollin' the Headless Thompson Gunner, which is my favorite Warren Zevon song. And he knew he was dying. He was diagnosed with mesothelioma and knew he was dying. He had only had so many months, and Letterman was asking him, this is one of my favorite quotes ever, so I'm totally going to embrace this digression. But Letterman asked him, like, what's that, how does that kind of change your worldview? Like, what do you take away? What's like your thought process? I'm totally paraphrasing here, but kind of like what do you say to yourself every day when you wake up knowing like you've only got so many days left? And Warren Zevon's reply was, enjoy every sandwich. And I think that's such a great line. And it's true. It's good advice. Like just daily, like take a second and enjoy everything, the little things where you can.
That is
brilliant
pretty good.
Guy. Great, amazing lyricist.
Passed away in 2003.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah. Amazing lyricist, really funny, great musician, talented guy, multi-instrumentalist.
His Wikipedia says he does a cover of Raspberry Beret that I don't know that I've ever heard. So
he's such a distinct voice. The thing is, if I ever heard he did a cover of something, I'd either say like, "Wow, it's either amazing or it's really awful," and doesn't fit because he just is a very distinct guy. But
it looks like he also did a cover of First We Take Manhattan, the Leonard Cohen song.
Oh,
so.
See, I'm gonna have to look that up now.
There you go.
And I might hate it or I might love it.
But anyway, we digress.
Absolutely, we do. The fight itself was really cool too. That's one thing I love about this show is they really have this mode of like where these guys are fighting and then we're going to move across the room and catch up with them and we're going to use the momentum of these characters to carry us through the shot to somebody
back
else.
To some other,
Which feels very Edgar Wright. For some reason it reminds me of Shaun of the Dead.
That exact moment called out to me too. The moment when TC and Tulip get shut into the bathroom, bringing you back to Jody and Jesse.
Yeah, I feel like it happened a couple times in like some minor fashion, but the one where TC he's like holding her and runs her like through the door, was really funny.
Yep. TC's line about where like after Tulip sprays the Nair, the hair removal cream on it, and he says, "Found object bathroom weaponry." It's just kind of like. I don't even know.
Like he's a video game narrator.
Or he's just he's so delighted at the fact of like, oh, we're gonna do this now, and then realizes what's going on, and he makes his flamethrower that ultimately didn't help him at all. But
I love that too because it reminded me of like playing like Halo or something, like Cortana talking to you to update you on the situation. Or like Doom, found object, bathroom weaponry.
Yes, you've picked up the rocket launcher.
The whole scene was really, really fun to watch. It was great.
I don't know that there's a whole lot of other like mechanical stuff. There was another split diopter shot, which we talked about last season because they started doing it a lot, of Gran'ma holding the napkin and Tulip kind of in the background, which is very cool. And I know they talked about that. I don't know how much we digressed on that in season 2, but they recently the Slash Filmcast talked about the Mission Impossible series, and apparently Brian De Palma apparently is a big split diopter guy, which I haven't seen a whole lot of De Palma movies, but I just thought that was interesting.
He is definitely one of the people who helped perpetuate it.
Yeah,
which is interesting because it is such a distinct effect, and it saves you. In a way, it kind of saves you from a lot of work. Basically, if you're gonna try to achieve that level of focus, you have to blast so much light into that room. If you're not going to use a diopter, but it also gives it. I guess that's not true. It's not just an economy of light kind of thing, but it's also like it gives you a weird perspective.
It saves you the focus pull, obviously, which you're familiar with because but then you don't have to move from something extremely close in the frame and then go all the way back to something in the background.
Yeah.
Which I imagine would require a much more expensive lens than using a split diopter with a different kind of situation.
I mean, if you want everything to be in focus, you have to be stopped all the way down on the lens or as far down as you can be to widen the depth of field. But the diopters do lend you an extra sort of something because you can almost... Because it's kind of essentially like a pair of cheaters, like a pair of reading glasses, sort of, and it kind of lets you get even closer to a subject. So that, how it's usually not just like here's a guy and there's another guy.
Yeah.
Usually that guy in the foreground is like really in the foreground. It's something like very close.
Well,
up.
it feels like you're literally highlighting an object.
Yeah, because I think the idea is that you're taking a longer a lens that has that compression, but doesn't normally give you all that depth of field.
Yeah.
So it is a really cool effect, and it does really jump out. It just kind of pops off the screen when you see that.
Yeah. Yeah. Any other thoughts about the teaser? I don't know.
What's the last beat of the teaser?
Jesse gets locked in the coffin.
Oh, the coffin. Yeah. Oh, the coffin is so badass. I'm so glad we're back there.
Yes. Yeah.
It looks so funny underwater. Like, to me, it immediately reminds me of like the little scuba guys that you see in like a fish tank. For some reason, it reminds me of that.
Well, it's funny because that's kind of that's the first time you hear the noise.
Yeah, that's true.
In
season 2,
Glenn Morshower's house,
right at the beginning of season 2,
in his fish tank.
That's true. Maybe that's also why it reminded me of it unconsciously.
I know. I mean, it's that
the way it's shot. I actually, especially there's a shot of it later in the episode. I really thought, I was like, is that a miniature like in a tank? It might be. But maybe not. That would be really cool, though.
Maybe, yeah.
Clever way to do it.
I wouldn't surprise me if they were like, yeah, we can't really quite Photoshop something that looks the way we want it to. So
we can't necessarily build a full-size coffin and have a dive team with a camera go down there and shoot it. Why not just shoot it in the fish tank?
Make a fish tank, yeah. Absolutely.
I miss like true movie magic.
Yes, for sure. Other than that, we just kind of get Jesse starting to explain why he doesn't want to kill Gran'ma, but we don't really touch on that.
Right.
I don't get the inkling by the end of this episode that he was aware that Tulip would die too before this. He just has He
kind of hints that he knew, but then why wouldn't he tell her? Like,
well,
don't kill her.
But I don't think he knows because he goes to save Tulip first.
Yeah, that's true.
If he would have known, I think he would have gone straight to Gran'ma. So.
Fair enough.
There might be something more there, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's true.
All right. On to Act 1. The newly hatted Herr Starr receives a call from the Allfather as he's rehearsing Humperdoo's introduction to world leaders. The Allfather questions Starr about Jesse Custer, but Starr plays it off as though Jesse's not a threat to the Messiah. The Allfather requests to see how Humperdoo's training is progressing, and Starr regretfully has Humperdoo perform his only skill that he's any good at, soft shoe. The Allfather loves the performance, and Featherstone secretly informs Starr that she may have a plan to get Jesse back in the fold. Back at Angelville, Tulip is chained up in the bathroom, and she gets a visit in the bedroom, and she gets a visit from TC, Jody, and Gran'ma, all wondering where Cassidy is as he was their meal ticket. Tulip questions Gran'ma as to why Jesse hasn't killed her yet, but she plays coy about it and tells Jesse to watch Tulip, so he pulls out a pen. Tells Jody to watch Tulip, so he pulls out a pen and a crossword. Herr Starr's hat.
So he was wearing that hat in season 1 when we see him from behind when he's in like the snuff film festival. He is wearing like a white sort of fedora with a
Yeah.
red stripe. So that's not necessarily the first appearance of that hat.
Okay.
But then we get his amazing like white large brimmed baseball cap later, which is so good. I can't wait. There's going to be so much more to come, I think. I think we're going to see some really amazing hats.
So I guess, I was going to say, so in the comic, are you seeing him in different hats to like fit with like disguises, or just like that are more to do with the locale that he's in, or?
Yes and no. I can't elaborate any further,
All right.
unfortunately, because I'll ruin something.
That's fine.
Spectacular.
We'll. But was this what you were waiting to see?
No.
After he got hit in the head.
No. But this was great. I mean, like the first hat. I think he wears that hat at several points in the book. I feel like when we first meet him, he's just in his bald head, but I feel like he does adopt that hat. I feel like my memory might be playing tricks. I'm like 97% sure that when we see that shot of him walking away down the hallway in the white suit, that he has the hat on. But anyway, maybe not. But I'm pretty sure.
Well, no, my guess is that at least in season 1, they're like, we want you, the comic book reader, to know who this is.
Right, which we did anyway.
And they
but
probably
the hat, the hat helps tie it all together anyway.
Yeah.
It's part of his. It's a cool look. But yeah, I definitely giggled when he had it, and I actually belly laughed at the baseball cap later because, God, that look on his face all the time, that perpetual just resting bitch face that he has is so funny. Like Pip Torrens is just, give him some award for this show, because he is just such a brilliant comedian in this series. And even in this scene where he's like gritting through his teeth as he's talking about Humperdew is really funny when he's on the phone or on the FaceTime.
The iPad,
yeah. Humperdew is he's much more of a character in the show than in the books. Like in the book, he's not really in it much. He's there just to get the point across, and then he's kind of like pushed off to the side. And I don't know how comfortable it really is to watch. Like it's definitely,
it's really weird.
It is weird.
Yeah, the trotting out of a mentally disabled Christ child in any a mentally disabled character in any sense to be the butt of a joke.
Yeah, and
is weird.
I think they're maybe using him as a bit of like an allegory of the type of people that certain groups tend to push forth and say, this is the guy.
Oh.
And the rest of us go, are you serious? And they go, yeah, look at him. He's perfect. I could see that that's about the level of subtlety that Rogan and Goldberg sometimes.
That's true.
Or lack thereof intentionally. But the thing is, it goes so far over that I feel like it's easy to let it pass you by. But I feel like that they're kind of, that's sort of the agenda a little bit. I think they're kind of saying because the Allfather is the Allfather, the Grail, right? He's as powerful as Star is. This is the guy. And he's has full, he's like, what? Well, yeah, show me what he can do. And then he does it, and he thinks it's great. And he's like, yeah, totally. Let's move up. Not only is that good,
everyone will eat this up.
Let's move up the timetable. We're not even going to take any more time than we need.
Yep.
And that's good because it works on a lot of levels. Because in the book, Star is definitely the Allfather is not. He's no longer fit to lead the Grail. Is kind of Star's position
thesis. Yeah.
But in the book, it's not. You're not provided with necessarily a lot of evidence of it, other than the Allfather being like, yeah, we gotta put. He's not even called Humperdew in the book. He just says that. That's the only word he says.
Yeah.
But in the book, he's kind of like, yeah, he's the Messiah, whatever. We got to put him forward. But I think the idea in the book is that although Humperdew would be the figurehead, that the Allfather would still wield control from behind the scenes.
Okay.
And in the show, it's unclear as of yet as to what exactly the Allfather's plan is. But he seems kind of like, yep, cool, put him up there. And maybe he is more cunning than that. And he's saying, yeah, we'll let this guy be the one in the public eye, and meanwhile I will continue to be in command.
Yeah.
Either way, in the books, Star is I want to find a way around the Allfather. And in the show, he's got the same objective, as you can tell immediately by the Allfather being like, hey, what about this Custer dude I'm hearing about? And he's like, nope, he's a nobody. Doesn't matter. Don't worry about it. Meanwhile, he's like, we have to move our timetable up. We got to get him back in our corner.
In our good graces.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if there will be a point where they cut loose and kind of say, all right, Jesse's not going to do what he wants to do. We need to kill him and take it from him, rather than like...
Well, I feel like eventually it could go that way. I feel like eventually Jesse has to get Genesis back in order for the show to continue to be Preacher.
Well, yeah.
But we'll see how all that's going to shake down. I'm still not really sure, because Genesis, who knows what kind of mental, for lack of a better term, state Genesis is in right now, because he's still in Jesse.
Yeah.
Just unable to even do anything necessarily.
Yeah.
So either in this dormant time, Genesis is maturing slightly or regressing.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm interested to find out. All I know is the best part about this whole sequence is Hoover singing and
playing
the
piano.
piano and just making me laugh my ass off.
Yes.
It was spectacular.
It was fantastic.
And he's genuinely delighted when it's over. He's like, yeah, like he's really he's the only other person in the room who's like into it besides Humperdoo, and it's really good.
Oh, Hoover. Hoover's so good.
Beautiful Hoover.
Sweet
Hoover.
So Star's line to Featherstone about how she got her like bloodied nose, like a woman did
Swollen
that to
nose.
you. Yeah. I thought was, very Star
Very
at least,
Star,
and I don't know, quite good, but
we're really seeing like Tulip like full bore like badass in this season. Like she's always been pretty badass, but in this season she feels like it's just like we're watching her like just knock people out.
Yeah.
Like by the end, she like, who does she punch? Oh, she punches TC out right towards the end of this. Just like knocks him out cold, and and without even flinching. And it's like, she's so good.
Mm-hmm.
She's great.
And then so she kind of tries to get Gran'ma to understand or tell her why Jesse doesn't kill her. And Grandma's basically just kind of like, he's family and he's smart. He knows that he shouldn't do that. But I don't know. Like it's still it's weird to me that like I guess Gran'ma hadn't played that card yet to Jesse in terms of like if you kill me, Tulip's gonna die.
Mm-hmm.
And so her playing coy about it is just kind of weird to me. I don't get what her motivation of holding that playing card is, other than just to torture Jesse, I guess. But
yeah.
But yeah, the fact that like they were so hell bent on Cassidy being the thing bringing them back to prosperity, I guess, I think is interesting. They despite the fact that he's a vampire and they clearly kind of despise that,
Mm-hmm.
They wanted to use him, obviously,
Right.
so but Grandma's just so pissed about it too. Like it's almost like she doesn't have faith that Jesse will help them or that Jesse can help them necessarily. I don't know. But
it's definitely like a grievous like offense to her to steal. She keeps saying they stole as though like he's her property, and like that definitely riles her up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it must run a little deeper than just like you took something from me, but at the same time, the idea that somebody would dare do that and succeed, it seems to really not
piss them
sit
off
well with her.
Yeah. Yeah. Any other thoughts? All right. In Act 2, while the Allfather loves Humperdoo and wants to accelerate the Grail's time frame for the Second Coming, Featherstone says she has a plan involving Cassidy. We cut to Cassidy in New Orleans picking up some opioids from a veterinarian and chatting with someone via the Bite Me app. Cutting back to Jesse, he's starting to lose it in the coffin and recites states and their capitals until he passes out and wakes up in a black and white desert with his pal John Wayne. Jesse plays out his Old West fantasy and tells the bad guys that's why I'm one of the good guys, because there's way too many of the bad, which is something that his father used to tell him to be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we'll get to John Wayne in a second, but seeing where Cassidy ended up, just kind of on the streets in New Orleans, getting some opioids. Makes sense.
Some elephant tranquilizers.
Yeah, elephant tranquilizers from the veterinarian.
Whoever that vet was, that guy was awesome.
Yeah.
Like for a bit role, he was fantastic. I laughed out loud at his line, like, make sure you tell your elephant not to mix that with any alcohol. Like, that really cracked me up. I was like, that's great.
The other thing, AMC, I think, is really good at picking veterinarians because there's a really good veterinarian in Better Call Saul.
Oh, really?
Who's kind of in on some of what's going on, and it's just I don't know. I don't know. I thought it was like, oh, is this gonna be or is this somebody related to that guy or something? But it's not. I mean, it just it seemed like it could have been an interesting place for a crossover. Except for the fact that it's New Mexico versus
we get a veterinarian spin-off series.
New Orleans, yeah. The veterinarians of the seedy underbelly.
Yeah, exactly. The underworld.
Yeah, I don't know if we want to say much about the Bite Me app. We'll get to that later.
Yeah.
But all right. The moment of truth, John Wayne.
Oh boy.
How did you feel about the show's depiction of John Wayne?
For the most part, I really liked it.
Yeah.
The fact that it even made it to this point was pretty cool. However, to someone who is not in the know, you might be like, what?
Where's this coming from?
Well, yeah, exactly. And where's it going? And honestly, I don't know if he'll show up anymore. It's funny that he's in this episode because I think last week talked about how the cover of that one issue is the coffin underwater and John Wayne like standing next to it.
Yeah.
And that John Wayne is throughout the book, but he is really important when he's a kid in the coffin because he kind of gets him through it.
Mm-hmm.
And the show does a wonderful job of, I think, indicating that to a non-reader.
Yeah.
And I don't remember now because I'm starting to get confused with our Discord talk and that, but has Joseph read the books? I don't think so, but I don't remember.
I don't think Joseph has. I know Bruce
has for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. I couldn't remember. So I'm curious to Joseph when you hear this, and maybe I'll bring it up later in our chat. But for anybody else who's listening who hasn't read the books, did this make sense to you?
That's a good question.
As like a coping mechanism, because he does say when Jesse's in there, you hear his voice come in, and he's like, "I'm here." He's like, "It's been a while since you were down here," and he's like, "I'm here to take over." So I don't think Jesse, at least my read on it, I don't think Jesse passes out in there. I think he literally just
it's like a daydream.
Daydreams, yes,
Yeah.
because I think that the function of John Wayne in the books in that context is that he helps kid Jesse like pass the time by having really vivid daydreams, essentially, because he has like a good imagination. And he, in the show, the daydream that he has is something that a kid would have. Like, he's standing at this little train stop in the middle of the West with John Wayne, and these bad guys materialize out of nowhere. They shoot them all down without any resistance, and they have really like hilarious like one-off lines to trade with them. And then a train comes and brings more of them, and he just keeps piling them up. It's exactly like what like an 11-year-old, 10-year-old boy would just imagine. It's great. It's kind of stuff I used to imagine when I was a kid in school. When I was bored, I'd pretend I was one of the X-Men and that kind of stuff. Like you have those kind of daydreams, and I think the show did a really great job of depicting that. It may have done an adequate job in explaining why, just by those lines John Wayne has. But you'd also probably were so caught off guard by the fact that like, what is this? And the show, I feel like they might have gotten a better John Wayne impersonator. Like, he's not bad, but I don't know. I don't think it was quite there, like especially in his look.
Yeah.
I felt like he looked like John Locke from Lost, and I kept thinking, like, is that him? Like, they did an awesome job with kind of hiding his face for the most part and only seeing his mouth and his jawline, but I figured, like, there has to be someone out there in the real world who was like a professional John Wayne impersonator who would have looked and sounded exactly like him.
Yeah, who would have
And maybe there's a thing where they can't say it's John Wayne. Maybe there's like some sort of estate like rights thing where you can't necessarily say like it's me, John Wayne, or like make it too on the nose. But he does act exactly like him and call out High Noon for being like commie crap or whatever he says, which is really funny.
Yeah, I kind of thought the same thing about it. Like I don't think that it was like It wasn't a bad John Wayne,
No.
but it's just not quite.
You know
there.
that there's someone who could have been like just insanely accurate to the point where it almost would have been cartoonish, and you would have been like, "Oh, this is amazing."
Like Michael Showalter.
No, God, no. I'm for some reason all I could keep thinking of was Ryan Stiles, because he used to impersonate him all the time on Whose Line Is It Anyway? Even though he looks nothing like him, but he at least sounded more like him. Anyway, although they could have gotten around it by if they had. In the book, you like never see his face hardly straight up. Like the hat is always tipped down low enough, and it's always just like shadow.
Yeah,
kind of the way the show tends to shoot the Saint when he's like in a lot of these scenes. So I feel like they could have done it that way, which would have actually looked really cool if you just hear the voice. There's something about like the presence of his body and the voice that makes him seem more like a specter, which is really cool. Like as soon as you see like human features, really, you're kind of like, okay, but
well, maybe if they bring him out of the like hallucinatory realm, the daydream realm or something like that, they might do it more that way. But
either way, it was fantastic. Like this, it gave me, when the voice came in, like chimed in and he was in the coffin, I like got goosebumps. I was like, oh, it's happening. It's happening. I really wanted it to cut to an exterior shot of the coffin and see him standing there. I would have screamed. I would have thrown my iPad out the window like a Frisbee.
As I was watching it, I was like, Nick is either going to really like this or there will be something that he hates about it.
It's definitely more towards the really liked. There's nothing about it that I hated.
Yeah.
I think the impression was a little soft.
Yeah.
And that's about it though. But I loved the inclusion of it. I'm glad that they realized like we have to have this in here as a way of explaining how as a child he was able to endure the coffin but it also, the thing is, because John Custer is so lame in the show, at least as we've seen so far, and they might do a lot more with him later. You know, they might listen to me and get John Bernthal and, reshoot it. But the John Custer and John Wayne are like, they're the two biggest forces in what make Jesse who he is. Like, he is that cowboy. And I've talked about this before, so I won't talk about it anymore. But the show, he's not really the same in the show, and the show hasn't really talked about those being like big like cornerstones in his character. So it doesn't necessarily have quite the same impact, but it's really, really cool nonetheless.
Yeah.
I thought it was fantastic. I want to see more of it.
Yeah, I liked it a lot, but I had the context of our kind of previous discussions about it. So, it's hard for me to separate from that and say whether or not it works. It works or it if the filmmaking of it made sense to me or not. So if there's anybody who kind of forgot about that stuff or had any questions about it or didn't think it worked, please write in and let us know.
I do feel like it's one of those things where the dialogue is there, and if you're like paying attention, you can kind of piece it together.
Yeah.
But if you were someone who was just watching, you might be really confused. You might be like, "Oh, what the hell?"
Yeah, what's going on? But even the idea that he's down in this thing kind of going a little crazy and he starts hallucinating about something, I think that all plays pretty well of like, I get it. He's got nothing to like. It's almost like a sensory deprivation tank.
Yeah.
So it kind of makes sense. I think even without the context, I think it would make sense to somebody who thought about it for a little bit. So
I found the cover. He's not standing next to it. He's sitting. He's sitting on it and talking.
That's awesome.
To him, basically. Yeah, it's an amazing.
That's very cool.
There's like a sunken ship in the background.
Yeah.
You can see a lot of the. I'm just kind of showing Alex some brief moments here, but this is typically kind of what he looks like when he shows up.
That's cool.
So he's really like hidden.
Yeah.
And now that I'm skimming through this, though, he's in it a lot more than I remember. I mean, I knew he was in it throughout the comic, but he's really in it a lot. And he often shows that he's basically like a part of Jesse's subconscious, like there to help him.
It's a representation for you to kind of get the internal.
Yeah, but like Jesse reacts to him as though he's somebody else. It's like a Tyler.
And maybe it also is a little bit there to give you that influence of John Custer.
Very true.
After he passes away, obviously.
I hope it carries on throughout the show.
That would be cool.
I don't think it's going to, but I would love that.
And but maybe it will, because maybe that's why they didn't get somebody who's like a big time John Wayne impersonator. It's like we don't want to have to pay this guy every time.
I mean, I feel like they can't. If you're going to offer them volume and say like, "Hey, we want to have you as a," you wouldn't say no to a gig on AMC. I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I get what you're saying too.
All right. Act 3. Cassidy meets with a vampire that he met on the Bite Me app who says she's 200 years old, but when they go to make out in the bathroom, she stops the action to put in her fangs. Cassidy gets angry and shows his fangs and leaves the bathroom to head out to the bar and drink with his opioids despite his vet's advice. Featherstone sits at the bar in a New Orleans tourist disguise watching him. Let's stop there for a minute.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this I guess I'll talk about it here. It never occurred to me that the Children of the Blood would be a bunch of impersonating vampires. The thought never crossed my mind.
I'm so pleased to hear that.
I was like, Denise sitting here watching these videos, I was like, oh, I guess vampires are more of a thing here. Or like, you can find vampires out. But the fact that it's like a group who's like, oh, we impersonate vampires and make these high production, probably low production videos of us acting like vampires and tearing people's throats out and stuff like that is way funnier than I even could have imagined.
Oh, I can't wait for more. I really don't want to talk about it too much because their utility and like background in the book I think is going to be different from the show.
Okay.
But in the event that it's not, I don't want to cross the lines. But anyway, I'm just really excited about seeing more of them. The next episode is called L'Enfant du Sang. That's the name of that's the title. So I was like, okay, good.
Yeah, there will certainly be more of them.
It's going to be great.
But I don't know. It makes sense to me that obviously this is cutting ahead a little bit, but it makes sense to me that like she sees that he's a real vampire and then is like, okay, I'm bringing him back to the group, and
we can't wait till I tell the rest of the gang about this.
Yeah. Exactly. So,
I loved the date scene.
Yeah.
I really felt you really feel for Cass in that bit because you see it also explains why she is very like, oh, it's great.
Optimistic and cheery about being
200
a vampire.
years. And he's like, oh, really? 200? Like what does he say? About 100 or 90?
He says 89.
89, okay. So he's very on with his math. Yeah, when you think about like, oh, wow, he's not even halfway to 200. And she's just like, oh, yeah, I love it, don't you? And he's kind of like, and he talks about
it was weird to me at first of like, oh, she's been a vampire for 200 years. Like, I was like, oh, that's pretty.
It's a long time. Right?
Yeah.
Long time to do anything. Mm-hmm. But you feel bad for him. You pity him when you see him ruminating over all the terrible things that come with immortality.
Yeah.
And he's also thinking a little bit about Tulip too, but then she's kind of like saying like, oh, doesn't these moments of connection, then aren't they even more meaningful? And you see him kind of like there's a ray of light. There's some hope maybe that he can find some companionship among these other people. And that I love how angry he is at her in the bathroom. Also, I love that she pulls her fangs out of like a little like retainer case.
Yeah.
Oh God, it was so funny. I started laughing. She's like, wait. Just puts them in. Okay, go. I really love how we're not going to go a single episode of this show, spoilers, without praising Joe Gilgan.
Well, yeah.
It's not going to happen, no matter what. But his ability to go from any one emotional state to another is just remarkable. But when he switches into like vampire mode, he's so creepy. Mm-hmm. He's so awesome. He's been doing it since season 1, which is great because Cass in the books is kind of the same way. Cass in the books he's never like great to look at. Like he's always a little kind of because he always looks dirty. He wears the same thing all the time, and he's always got the sunglasses on, and you're just kind of like, okay, I don't know about him. And Joe Gilgan like can look really pleasant, and like sometimes you enjoy looking at him. You're like, oh, look at his get up, or like even on the date he's like cleaned up, his hair is kind of different, he looks fine, he's not bad. And then he just switches into like vampire mode and you're like, oh God, like it's sweet.
Well, and he's not a bad looking guy by any stretch. He's just got like that stubble, and he doesn't he puts off the vibe that he doesn't shower that often.
Sure.
You know? And I get that. But as you said, the stuff that they choose to put him in costume wise is always so interesting that it like immediately removes your defenses against however he may look at the time, you know? Because he always looks like he's strung out on something or, you know, but...
and he just, he inhabits that role so perfectly.
Yeah.
He just fills it with so many little things that are great. And he does look the most awake he has in a long time on the date. Like, he just seems coherent and clean. And it explains why because I think he really does in his mind think like, okay, clean break.
Yeah.
Starting over. Oh, here are some...
I'm going to meet me a nice vampire.
Here are some people like me. I have a chance to leave all that shit behind and maybe go on the straight and narrow. And so when he comes out of the bathroom and marches right to the bar and says, give me that and that, pops open the pills, starts drinking it, even the way he like shoots a bunch of the pills and there's one like hanging on his lip and everything was hilarious. But at the same time, I was like, oh God, here we go.
Yeah.
He's
he was going to try and now he's right back to where he was. So I guess that's my question, and maybe we'll find out more about it next episode, was like, did he think he was going to meet a real vampire?
I think he did.
Yeah. Which still puts me in this weird, like, it makes me not feel so bad that I was duped by L'Enfant du Sang.
Right.
But I guess I just still don't understand the overall context of vampires in that universe, which is not important, I would say.
I'm not sure you ever will.
Yeah. He's
kind of an anomaly even in the book. Like when he's kind of a novelty.
Okay.
When people find out he's a vampire, they're like, whoa, shit, what?
Yeah. Yeah. But the weird thing is that we've never had somebody be like, you're not a vampire. Those don't exist. It's like when they hear he's a vampire, they are terrified. And so I don't know. It's just it's an interesting distinction.
Yeah.
At least. But yeah. No, that was a good sequence. Continuing with Act 3, Jody and Tulip entertain each other talking about guns and crossword clues as Tulip tries to retrieve the hairpin from the floor. Unfortunately, Jody catches on and picks it up before she can get it. TC and Gran'ma plot how to exact their revenge on Tulip for freeing Cassidy, but Gran'ma wants to take her soul. TC cautions against it, saying little Jesse will never forgive her, and then suggests that he and Gran'ma play. Back in Jesse's old Western fantasy, John Wayne realizes they're reenacting High Noon, a Gary Cooper Western that he passed on. He gooses Jesse into trying to get out of the coffin to save Tulip from Gran'ma, and Jesse realizes the pump feeding him air has gasoline fueling it and decides to try to send a cigarette up the outpipe to blow it up. Jody doing a crossword is funny.
Yeah.
Her line about I didn't even realize you could read or whatever she says, I thought was quite good.
Yeah.
And even seeing her try to like chew on the clues too, even though she's like distracted by trying to get the hairpin, I thought was good.
Yeah, I loved that scene. Those two are really good foils for each other.
Yeah.
I forgot to mention it, but when Gran'ma leaves the room and she says, watch her, the way he pulls out the pen and the newspaper and just kind of plops on the bed.
Onto the bed.
And just I was like, what? Jody doing
He's
a crossword?
He's done this many times before.
Yeah, that too. But just like Jody, the sight of Jody doing a crossword was very funny.
It's probably that he's been working on that crossword for like 15 years.
It's from the 90s.
It's been sitting in his pocket.
You just can't get those two clues. Those are the only two left. Yeah, that was very funny. I was just like really quite taken with that decision to just I feel like so much of the stuff that happens in these scenes is just like, what would he be doing?
Yep.
How about a crossword? Yeah, makes sense. People do that. Sure. And we'll see how it works. Oh, it's hilarious. Like, it's perfect.
Yeah.
And the banter between the two of them is so good. And I did laugh out loud at the line, like, I'm surprised you can even read or something. Like, the delivery of it is just, it's fantastic. I feel like shows are so often either underwritten or overwritten. And I've poo-pooed on police procedural shows on another podcast of ours, probably all the podcasts we've done now, which is like 5 or something. But they're always so overwritten. People don't shut up. They're just the air has to be filled with words at all times. People can't just be, or like you can't convey anything visually. But this scene, I feel like if there was less talking, it wouldn't be as compelling. It's like they really just nail the right amount of spoken word all the time. And like all these scenes, I never leave a scene necessarily. I shouldn't say never. It's rare on this show that I leave a scene being like, I wanted a little more out of that, or like that was too much. It has happened, I'm sure.
Well, and like speaking of like police procedurals, it's always heavily telegraphed as like, this is a quieter scene, probably not in the office. We're at someone's home. There's probably candles burning in the background. This is where we're going to learn about our characters.
Sure.
Whereas with this show, all of this talking being done has literally nothing to do with developing the plot. It is them bouncing off of each other as the action that they're filming is informing kind of what is going on or what's trying to go on. You see Tulip extending out I think it's like a curtain. I forget.
It's like a curtain rod.
Yeah, like a curtain rod, and trying to like quietly move it as like Jody or she is talking, and she can kind of pull it towards. So like visually they're giving you that this is what we want you to see is happening here, but then they're using the verbal stuff to inform you about, just to bounce these two characters off of each other.
Yeah, and to distract a little bit from what's going on.
And there's never like you just, the characters are so archetypal in police procedurals that you never have to do that because you learn it in episode 1. Yeah. So no, it's quite good. It's a lot of them bouncing off of each other is like they're as good of foils as I think Cassidy and TC were. In my eyes.
Sure.
Like and that having them set up that way, I think was really. Do you feel like that's not really a carryover from the book? That's just kind of the way that.
Yeah, the way the show shook down. But even Jesse and Gran'ma, like those three pairings are so good.
Yeah,
and the actors are flawless in them, and the way the chemistry they all have is so good. Yeah, it's spectacular. The scene was also fun to watch because the entire time I was like, Jody knows what she's doing.
Yeah.
Like I had no doubt in my mind. I was like, he's just toying with her. Even the part where she says something about she's not good for words, and he's like, oh, you sure use them all the time or something like that. I was like, he's just letting her think. He's letting her think she has the upper hand. Yeah, exactly. And she eventually does get the drop on him, which is cool. I think his mistake is moving closer to her.
Yes.
But oh well. It all worked out for them anyway.
TC with hair missing, his eyebrow missing from his face because of the hair remover.
Yeah.
It's very good. Not ever commented on or anything.
Just there.
I just remember thinking, I was like, oh man, I can't wait to see him later on when he's missing some of his hair. And then the fact that it's mostly just his eyebrow is really good. Yeah, I don't know that there's a whole lot to say about Gran'ma and TC here.
Not yet.
Yeah, we'll get there. And then John Wayne.
The dig at High Noon was funny.
Yes, that was good, and you know that is actually the plot of High Noon.
Yeah, I like High Noon, but it's not wrong. Like it's most of the movie of him walking around trying to get people to help him.
Yeah,
and no one will, and then just the shootout comes and he just has to do it. But when it does happen, it's awesome.
Yeah,
it's a cool movie, but I could see John Wayne saying that in real life and meaning it.
Reading that script, me like, this is dumb.
Yeah, I would have gone after him and shot them all.
He would have put a train on the tracks and headed it towards the train coming into town.
Westerns are so. I love westerns. Westerns are so cool. There's so much to talk about. You've really not seen that many westerns, have you?
It is a big blank spot in my film education.
You should look
Not
up.
that there aren't many other large blank spots.
I was gonna say
but it's a big world.
What's
out
your
there.
field of view like?
I don't know.
It's just
Back to the Future and the Matrix.
Just Hollywood blockbuster trilogies. Got those on lock.
Yep.
You should sometime look for like an article that says like the top 5 or top 10 most important Western or best Westerns or something like that, and
Best
not hotels. Let's not stay.
Best Westerns.
You know what? Let's
We should make a podcast called
let's
Best
rent-
Western.
and record it at a Best Western and and watch a Western. I was just gonna say we should rent like a suite, like the biggest room available at a Best Western, and watch a couple Westerns with a couple people, and then record an episode about it.
That'd be pretty good.
Just a one-off. Oh man, there's a hook.
Yeah.
There's a best. I don't know where there's a Best Western out here. I was gonna say there's one up by the Star John R, but I don't think that's a Best Western. I think it's a Motel 6.
Yeah, I don't know.
Right by the movie theater. Even better. As soon as a Western comes out. Anyway, there are Westerns aren't really so much a thing anymore. They kind of, you get one once in a while, and it always feels like an event when it comes out. You're like, whoa, a Western. But, there was such a rich history of them over so many decades.
The spaghetti Western specifically feels like it has died out compared to we get things that are set in the, like even something like Hell or High Water, I would call a bit of a Western.
Sure.
But it's changed a lot.
It's more in the American Western tradition than the spaghetti Western. And spaghetti Westerns are their own animal.
Yep.
And they're also cool because Clint Eastwood's like later career in Westerns is obviously like rooted in his time in spaghetti Westerns, but because he obviously wasn't an Italian director, he has like American sensibilities. You get these movies that are like a weird kind of merging of several different like philosophies in like Western filmmaking, and you get stuff like High Plains Drifter, which I think is the shit, and and it's just such a bizarre movie that no one else would make, and like it, I don't know. That's one you'd have to watch.
Back to the Future 3 is the one Western that I have seen.
Okay, there you go. It's within your field of view.
That is the overlap of Westerns
there
in my
and Westworld, which is like sci-fi.
And then nope. This is the start of Jesse's plan, but we can talk about it more in Act 4. As Jesse attempts to blow up the pump supplying air to the coffin, TC tries to soothe Gran'ma with some sexual Civil War roleplay, but it doesn't work when he forgets his lines.
What a string of words.
When he forgets his lines and she realizes that he's not that into it. She tells TC to retrieve Tulip, but it turns out Tulip got out of the shackle and locked Jody in it, so Tulip knocks TC out and heads down to Gran'ma. Jesse's controlled explosion works, blowing up the coffin and setting him free. And Tulip tries to bargain with Gran'ma, asking her to break the spell on Jesse and let them go free. But Gran'ma starts a fight with Tulip. As Jesse returns to the house, Tulip throws Gran'ma's lifeless body off of her and stands up, saying she did it, and then she falls lifelessly to the floor. So Jesse's plan, I just don't, like, I think it doesn't work for me because it's just so asinine, but I'm kind of like, whatever, he's got to get out of the coffin somehow, and it's fine. It mechanically, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Of like they've got this pump out there pumping air in and out of the coffin for him to survive, obviously, which cool, but the idea that you would be able to send a cigarette up to it, a burning cigarette up to it, and that would somehow be anywhere near any fuel that was in the pump to blow it up doesn't
hold water for you.
Yeah, it blows the ice pack for sure. But I was kind of like, whatever, that's fine. We can get on with it. I liked the depiction of it at least. And I liked some of the logic behind it. The fact that he actually uses his collar tips to scratch dirt out of the coffin in order to let some water in, so he can like protect himself from the heat.
Yeah,
and he uses some cigarette filters to plug his ears, which is probably not that necessary if he's going to be underwater. But maybe he didn't want to get a bunch of water in his ears.
Maybe.
But overall, I was just kind of like, yeah, it's a little dumb, but I don't care.
Yeah, the only part that was confusing to me was how he was able to... Because he's using the pack to, like, block it, right? Is he doing that to try to build up the vacuum?
I guess that's kind of something that I don't quite understand.
Because he then, like, later has it positioned there. He, like, has the pack blocking it. And I assume that he's trying to fill the coffin with as much oxygen as he can so that it's more combustible by only accepting the air coming in, which I assume is it's not pure oxygen. It's just air, but it's a higher. I think at this point the coffin becomes more air than like whatever he's breathing, and he's building up pressure with the pack block in. Then later he fashions the thing with his collar, I think, to kind of continue to block it, and the cigarette in there, hoping that eventually when the pressure reaches like critical mass, it just sucks the cigarette up there once it gets strong enough to where it can free the blockage.
Yeah.
Like it's like ghetto science, like it's movie science. Like
yes.
I watched it and I was like, this makes sense. But
you get what it's trying to tell you, but you know that it wouldn't really work in real life.
It could have been much dumber. It could have been a far dumber explanation. He could have like just filled the coffin with air and then like lit the lighter and blown it up or something stupid. Like this was at least a little more interesting. I also like that it didn't work the first time.
Yeah.
And the look on his face when he's Dominic Cooper and those little expressions he can make when he's looking at it, he just has this like stupid
from under the water,
this like dumb grin on his face, and his cheeks look all huge because he's holding his breath, and he's just like, yeah, take that, and then it doesn't work. It was really, really enjoying.
To me it was weird because I thought the cigarettes were only up there because he was trying to keep them away from the water so he could burn more of them.
That's true too.
And but it doesn't make sense to me that there would be multiple suction points. It should only be the one that he's got the cigarette, unless
I think he moved the pack.
I don't think so though, because he keeps pulling them out. So that is a little bit unclear to me. Unless like somehow
does the air in eventually like suck the cigarette? Like I don't know.
Yeah, like unless he was like blocking the outlet to somehow make the pump like reverse and suck up through the inlet. I don't know. It does ultimately it doesn't matter.
No,
because we get it.
Yeah,
and it worked in the show.
Yeah.
So whatever. But anyway, I guess if anybody else thinks they have like a better explanation for what happened, please let us know. But the sexual civil war role play.
Yeah. Yeah, weird on numerous levels.
Mm-hmm.
I am concerned that I'm sure this has happened in the past, and I'm concerned it has gone much further than it did.
Oh, yeah.
Hey.
We get Grandma's wig off, which does not look as bad as the comics, but I think is ultimately trying to get there.
Yeah, not as good as she wants us to think she looks.
Yes. The fact that it is something that TC is doing to try and prevent Gran'ma from taking Tulip's soul, I think is interesting.
He's trying to distract her.
He's trying to distract her, but he's so worried about what Jesse will feel about this. Like it seems like it's more than just, I don't want him to be pissed because he won't help us. It seems like I don't want him to be pissed because I kind of care about him almost. And I don't know if that's true. Maybe TC just thinks that Jesse is more essential to Angelville coming back to prosperity than Gran'ma does, or Grandma's just so like blinded by rage right now and needs a soul to like continue to live and stay young. Like it just feels like there's a little bit more there between TC and Jesse than
either that, or I think maybe TC is the only one who knows that Jesse could be a serious threat if he.
Yeah, that's true.
If he was properly motivated, he could kill them all. And take down Angelville.
Yeah, that's possible. But yeah, and then the fight between Gran'ma and Tulip, I think I didn't expect Gran'ma to be to
put up that much of a fight.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was a little surprised too.
Like I wonder if her on her crutch and whatever is a little bit of a show to make people think she's less.
It's hard to gauge how old she is. If she has any like supernatural abilities about her.
Yeah.
We don't really know. It's pretty clear in the book that she's not doing great.
Yeah.
There is a detail about her and Jody and TC in the books, though, which has not yet been addressed in the show, and I'm not sure it's going to. And it might be the kind of thing that you have to add to the board for us to circle back around to.
Okay.
A trait about the three of them, which is explained in the books, hasn't come up yet in the show. It may not even be a factor in the show.
Okay.
But write that one down.
Okay.
At the end of the season, I'm sure we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
This will be the rooftop.
Yes, the rooftop of the Alienist.
Of the Alienist of this season.
Good to know. And yeah, Tulip passing out. Did you kind of get what was going on before it was explained?
I kind of figured.
Yeah.
I didn't suspect before that.
Yeah.
But as soon as it happened, I was like, oh, there it is.
There's some voodoo going on there,
Yep.
literally. All right, and then Act 5, it turns out that Gran'ma tied Tulip's life to her own in order to safeguard herself from Jesse. Jesse uses TC's adrenaline to revive Gran'ma, which in turn revives Tulip, but the adrenaline weakens Gran'ma's heart. TC informs the group that Gran'ma needs a soul, and Jody suggests that they start with Tulip's, starting a fight between everyone once again. Cassidy passes out at the bar after ingesting his opioids and drinking heavily, so Featherstone calls Star in. After clearing out the restaurant, they film a hostage video to send to Jesse in order to get him back on their side, but they get surprised when Leon Fontaine swoop in and save Cassidy.
And then he wakes up in their...
Yes, in their
Is that for
lair.
later?
No, I just kind of figured it was a little... We'll talk about it next week. Yeah, yeah.
I like his reaction to waking up amongst them, just going, ugh,
yeah,
bollocks. Yeah, he knows what he's dealing with.
Was the kind of the character in the throne was that reasonably comic book accurate?
Yeah. We'll talk more about that.
Yeah, that's fine.
Now I have to read that arc now in the comics. I have to skip ahead.
They're pulling you all over the place.
Significantly, I think, because the Angelville stuff is like issues like 6 through 11 or something weird. And I think that the Children of Blood or whatever it translates to, I think they show up in like the 30s or something of the issues.
So I don't know if I ever actually asked you whether or not that group was in the books or not.
They are.
Okay,
yeah.
so it is.
This is something.
It's not. It wasn't they are serving a similar function. It is literally Leon Fontaine are in the book.
The name of the group. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, when they were kind of teased in season 2, I was like, cool. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see if they are, like, basically if you were to ask, are they or are they not the same as in the book?
We don't know yet.
I wouldn't be able to answer, so we'll see.
That's fair.
I can already kind of say, in some ways, no. But we'll talk about that more.
Yeah, that's fair. The Pulp Fiction strategy.
Yeah, exactly.
It's good. Fits in with the...
So I get it. Like, we know why Gran'ma did this. Why doesn't she tell them, though, more up front? Because if Tulip had shot her in the face, like, killed her in a way that you could not necessarily come back from...
Then it would literally only exist to spite Jesse.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Rather than act as a insurance policy. Because she kills her by just oxygen deprivation, right? She basically just chokes her out until she dies.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if in real life, if you were to die in that way, if you could be revived with an adrenaline shot. I suppose maybe it's possible. I know people do die and they are revived.
Yeah, I think that.
Anyway,
reasonably, I think that could happen given ideal conditions.
A more violent means of death, which is certainly well within Tulip's wheelhouse. In fact, is probably the more likely way to be killed by Tulip is by like gun or knife or something or grenade or who knows.
And she gets the opportunity to do that and doesn't do it earlier in the episode.
It seems like a little. It's pretty fortunate for everybody involved that she just choked her out.
Yeah. That's what I'm left wondering if we will learn more. Obviously, we haven't gotten a moment of Jesse talking to Gran'ma to be like, "What the hell, Gran'ma?" Or you know, that's what leads me to believe that he wasn't aware.
Yeah, because he would have told her that's why you can't kill Gran'ma, because it'll kill you.
But
he does seem to immediately though say, "Oh, duh," and because then when they're talking about Madame Boyd, he's like, "She knew.
She
knew what she was doing."
Known,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. But I don't know why it almost seemed as though she wasn't expecting Tulip to be the one to kill her.
Mm.
You know? And she figured that if it...
She thought her life debt would have been enough to buy her some good grace from
Tulip. And that's what she says early in the episode of like, we didn't talk about it very much, but the whole speech of like, everything you do is because of me or from me,
which is great dialogue. I loved that. Every screw, every shit.
Yeah no and that, I mean, she wants Tulip to be more appreciative of it, but Tulip's basically just like, yeah, thanks, you know.
Well, thanks.
But so to me, and I don't think she believed that Jesse would try to kill her either. But anyway,
a lot of surprises in store for you, Gran'ma.
The only, like, I did want to go into speculation territory a little bit here, and I guess you maybe don't need to comment. You can give a little bit of like, do you think that's likely or something like that? But like, it's becoming clear to me that there probably isn't a way for them to just solve the fact that their lives are intertwined now. And so basically Gran'ma cannot be taken out of the equation necessarily without hurting Tulip. So my guess was that Jesse needs to use the word to like keep Gran'ma's heart beating literally.
That's a pretty cool theory.
And thus not only prevent Gran'ma, like he will somehow need to use the word to disable Gran'ma, but also keep her alive is my theory, at least.
Interesting theory. That's cool. I really can't say for sure because just Gran'ma's role in the show is different than in the books.
Yeah.
So I really can't confirm or deny that may happen.
Okay.
I like that idea though. It kind of calls back to some of the weird stuff that happened to the heart in the first episode.
The open your heart and like the having Tracy Loach open her eyes even though she was comatose. That kind of stuff. Like it feels as though it would be possible for Jesse to kind of put her in a state of like essentially being comatose as well, but alive for some indefinite period of time to keep Tulip safe or alive at least. But anyway, I guess if anybody else has some thoughts, let us know. Not informed by spoiler stuff from the comics, of course, but yeah. And then the Grail coming in to film their video. The Jeopardy line is
really good.
So good. He's like, I don't even think that's a word, mate.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
This is where we get a shot of Hairstar walking in all boss with that stupid hat. It looks like one of the like $1 painter hats you get at like Home Depot.
It's like
it's really good.
It's 2 steps away from having like a propeller on top of it. You know? Yeah. It's so good.
It is fantastic. And again, he just does it with that look on his face where just like, he'll kill everyone in the room, but you would still laugh at him. Which is like, that's crucial to the character of Hairstar is like, no matter, this isn't a spoiler necessarily, but no matter what level of extreme badassery he will bring to bear and like what level of depraved violence and vile plan, like on the level of like the operative from like Serenity, like something so deep, you will still laugh at him.
Mm-hmm.
And that's so key. That's so crucial to the character. And the fact that they have nailed that, not only in the way he's written, but the way he's dressed, but in finding Pip Torrens.
Well, and probably also the fact that they like have to dial it back a bit for television too, you know, because you've talked a little bit about his like sexual proclivities at least.
Yeah.
And so like the idea that they can't necessarily get into that, but yet you still find him funny in most respects, I think
you have to
good.
You definitely have to be able to, like, he's the kind of, there are moments in the book where like he'll just be like talking and he'll have like, I mean, it could be anything. It could be like a row of like 13 tanks behind him and he's just giving a speech where somebody will like snicker at him.
Yeah.
Like, because you just gotta laugh at him and be like, really?
I'm kind of curious why like he needed to switch hats.
I just can't.
Was he just kind of like, well, this one's a little too prim and proper? Yeah.
Time to dress down. Yeah, I love the way she says very Don Draper, even though it looks nothing like what Don Draper would wear. It was like the worst reference possible.
He's never seen Mad Men.
Who? Yeah. It was beautiful. I also really love that the Grail, particularly Samson unit, is professional enough to properly light their interrogation or ransom videos.
Yes.
When she whips open the umbrella, I started laughing. I was like, oh, that's so good. I love. I mean, I love every single cast member of the show, but I love Juliana Emery. She is so funny, and her disguise in the bar is hysterical.
It's beautiful.
The wig and she's reading the book about like the haunted tours of New Orleans. Man, it's so good.
She's got like a fanny pack on or whatever. Yeah.
You get the idea that she could be like an amazing field operative, but her partner's Hoover, and she seems to always like screw up. And in the books, she's different than in the comics, but she's similar in a lot of ways. But I really love it. I love her interpretation, and I think she's phenomenal. She's someone I want to see more of for sure, like in other projects. She's very, very talented.
She's quite good in the smaller role that she has in Better Call Saul. So look forward to seeing her in that someday. Joe Gilgun falling out of the chair, the physical comedy of this part, I also thought was notable, at least because like it's one of those things. Like I don't know, it's one of those things where it's like I don't feel like they would have planned it out that well. But, like, I could see him and Julianne Emery kind of being like, all right, I'm going to maybe fall out of the chair a little bit, so play with it a little bit. Yeah. And just kind of seeing how that worked out, I thought was quite good.
It was good.
The one detail here is the idea that L'Enfant Toussaint could get the jump on the Samson unit. Sure. Feels a little opportunistic. I don't know what the word I'm looking for. A little forced.
I agree. I agree with what you're saying.
But once again, I don't really care that much.
Like I said, this is where I kind of said this in the Discord, and I don't mean to keep airing the Discord conversations on the show, but there is a certain part of your relationship as the reader / viewer with Herr Starr is to see him established as a force to be reckoned with, which is definitely how they establish him, right? He's always in control. He's the puppet master. He's orchestrating everything. He's got this grand plan. He's got infinite resources and wealth at his disposal. He should not fail.
Yeah.
But you will continue to watch things slip out of his fingers, and it's really, really rewarding. It's so fun. It's fun on so many levels because it obviously keeps the story going, but it's even more fun to watch him react to like being this close and then just like, God.
And I guess that's the
got
thing.
Away again.
Like that fits very well with the situation,
right?
And they get caught off guard, I guess. So I can dismiss it.
Like I said, part of the joy of it all is watching him have every reason to succeed, and still something
by happenstance,
something will go wrong. Sometimes it's his fault. Sometimes it's one of his subordinates' fault. Sometimes it's an external force that sometimes it's sheer dumb luck. Sometimes it's something Jesse did. It's beautiful to just watch over and over and over again. I compared the relationship between him and Jesse to Wile E. Coyote and the Roadrunner from Looney Tunes.
That's very good.
And that's basically the way it is. Like just when he'll have everything in position and all the shit from Acme you could ever want, the Roadrunner will just find his way out.
Sidestep it.
Exactly. Yep. And then the coyote's left with this mess, and it's just fantastic.
That's beautiful. They've done a great job depicting that so far.
That's why while I'm having a lot of fun with everything that's going on, another reason I'm a little hesitant to reintegrate some old characters and maybe bring in more characters in general is like at the core of it, my favorite stuff in Preacher I think is always the like pursuit of Jesse by the Grail. And even though it comes and goes, he's always kind of ping-ponging between the Grail and some other like, one-off type things or the Saint.
Yeah.
And that's the stuff that's the most fun to me. So I'm not necessarily concerned yet about the lifespan of the show, but I think there is, as always with any show you enjoy, there's reason to be concerned that it might go away.
Yeah.
And there's some stuff from the books that I want them to get to before it's too late, and I really am hoping they can. But I also want this show to see it through to the ending, because the ending of the book, like I've talked about in the last week or 2 weeks ago, I love. And I hope the show does it the same way, but I could see it. I'm sure it will in some way be similar, but I just hope they get there.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. I would like them to have the opportunity to kind of close it out. And, I wonder if they have that plan in place, or if they're kind of taking it season by season, or what they're thinking. But
I feel like they probably have a big board somewhere where they have broken down what each season would be.
Yeah.
I sure hope so.
Yeah.
There's really no excuse to not, especially when you have existing material to draw from,
Yeah. No, just a little bit about how much you can get through. The one thing that I forgot to talk about a little bit was, of course, more Mark Harlick. We do get a glimpse of God. Tulip.
Yeah.
Tulip gets to see God once more, and trying to think, what exactly does he say to her? He says, "Dead again, I see. Pass fail, O'Hare, and you are failing." Very good. Just always happy to see Mark Harlick.
Oh yeah, that was great.
So
this is a moment from the book, pretty much, that the first time God appears to Tulip, I don't think she's even necessarily convinced that like God's around, but the first time he appears to Tulip is when she dies in the book. She does die at Angelville at one point, and God is the one who he appears before her, and that's when he kind of relays his message, and he brings her back to life, actually.
Okay, yeah.
And it's pretty awesome. But his condescending tone is perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And Mark Harlick. Hey, Mark Harlick sighting. I've been rewatching the Jurassic Park films. Somewhat enjoyably, somewhat against my better judgment, because my wife wants to go see Jurassic World 2, which I'm fine with. And I love the first Jurassic Park, as pretty much everyone with a pulse does.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved it when I was a kid for dinosaur reasons, and I thought Alan Grant was really cool. I didn't watch it for a long time until in my 20s sometime when they re-released it in
3D.
IMAX theaters in 3D, and I went and it shredded my mind, and I had to pull myself back together atom by atom like Dr. Manhattan. It was so awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And it took on a whole new meaning as an adult. And so I like watching it every couple years now as a grown-up. And in this rewatch, once again, love the first one. It's a classic, and every time you watch it, you realize more and more and more why it works and why Steven Spielberg is the only reason it works.
Mm-hmm.
But you watch Lost World, still Spielberg, right? But not as good. And there's a lot of worth in it, and there's a lot of crap in it. And either way, take it or leave it. I kind of like it, but I also recognize why it's not very good. But Jurassic Park 3 is just a big fart in a glove, as Willie would say. Have you ever seen Jurassic Park 3?
I have.
Okay.
In fact,
then you're good.
It was a long time ago.
That's fine. You're good there. Don't rewatch it. It's worse when you're older.
Interesting.
It sucks.
Before Jurassic World came out, I went back and watched 1 and 2 at least.
Sure. That's fine.
And I did not like 2 as much as I remember liking 3.
Oh,
from years before.
Then you should rewatch 3 so you can
I
straighten that
probably
out.
should, yeah.
Anyway, Mark Harlick's in it. He's at the very beginning. He plays like the new boyfriend that's like parasailing with the kid. If you remember any details of Jurassic Park 3. I didn't realize it was him. And as the second the movie started, the second it showed him, I was like, oh, there he is.
Beautiful.
I forgot to text you and tell you that I was actually going to take a picture of my TV, but I didn't. So.
Speaking of other Preacher sightings, I did go see Mamma Mia, Here We Go Again this weekend. And Dominic Cooper is there. And there's a moment where he's wearing like a bright blue disco suit. It's beautiful.
Can he sing and dance too in real life?
I mean, he does sing a few of the tracks, at least in the first one. I don't remember him singing all that much in this one. And he seems to do okay. They don't really have him doing that many dances.
So he's kind of like in the Pierce Brosnan realm of singing.
A
where
little,
like he's
yeah.
okay.
Yeah, I'd put him in that realm.
He can make it work.
I think he does a good job, but mostly it's really fun to see him in a disco suit compared to his like preacher get up. So
his badass Jesse duds.
Yes. So
I shouldn't compare him to Pierce because I haven't seen either of the Mamma Mia films, but I know Pierce Brosnan is in his own realm of charisma where he can pretty much do anything and you'll accept it.
When Pierce re-entered the picture in the second one, Tim leaned out and I looked over at him and we just nodded at each other. It was glorious.
We have, you've got your celebrity crushes, you've got your man crushes, and I feel like collectively we have some yet to be defined crush on Pierce Brosnan that can't be explained.
We want him to be our dad so bad.
But also like our best friend.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's spectacular.
Not that any of our dads are bad.
No.
But
our dads rule.
Yes.
But yeah, Pierce Brosnan just seems like the coolest.
Yes.
Did you watch that Nick Hornsby movie yet that I told you about with Aaron Paul?
No.
Oh, you have to. What's Long Way Down? Is that what it's called? Something like that?
Maybe we watched it. Is that the one?
I know I watched it, but I don't think I watched it with you.
I think I have seen it. It's like Aaron Paul, Pierce Brosnan, and like two other people.
Yeah, it's Imogen Poots and Toni Collette.
I have seen it. It is good. I liked it.
A Long Way Down is what it's called from 2014. Yeah, I remember I watched it. I know I didn't watch it with you because I was texting you during it saying you have to watch this because it has Pierce. It has Aaron Paul, two big draws for us. I really like Imogen Poots and I love Toni Collette, so I was like,
yeah,
this is a no-brainer. It's not the best movie, but like it's really good.
Yeah.
But I remember telling you the scenes in like when they're in the Mediterranean together. I was like the very brief like bromance between Pierce Brosnan and Aaron Paul is wonderful. So there's another recommendation. You got some Warren Zevon homework to do.
Yep.
Here's one, and maybe a deep cut for people who are fans. He has an album of like unreleased tracks. I think it's called Preludes, and it's got a song on it called Studebaker that when I discovered it, I must have listened to it 85 times in a row on like Spotify because I thought it was such a wonderful song. So if you're a fan of him and you don't know that song already, go look up Studebaker and enjoy it. For as roughshod as it is, his son is also a musician. He's not that great, but he covered it, and it's also not that great. But it makes you appreciate the talent of the man that he could record a demo of a song, and it's better than a fully fleshed out. Like the track is so authentic that you hear him screw up because he's singing and playing piano. You hear him goof the piano part, and he like loses his timing with the lyrics, but he kind of catches up quickly. Yeah, and it just is so real that when you're listening to it, you're like, oh wow, I really appreciate that. And you listen to his son's like polished recorded version, and it doesn't hold a candle to it. Yeah. So there's a testament to just raw talent. And then watch A Long Way Down. It's pretty cool. It was on Netflix, at least back then in like 2015 when I watched it.
I feel like it was like a Netflix movie. So it should probably still be up there.
Yeah, it was from the author of who also wrote High Fidelity.
Yeah.
And I don't know who directed it, though. I don't think it was the same director. But either way, it was worth a watch. But write in and tell us about your thoughts on Pierce Brosnan and how he's clearly the best James Bond.
Yes.
And if you wish he was your dad, or which celebrity you do. Actually, I think for childhood, us, it was probably Tim Allen. We were all like, Tim Allen's my dad.
Of course.
That's a different topic for another day.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Anyway.
Is there anything else in this last scene that we didn't talk about before we got on this ridiculous tangent?
I think we pretty much hit everything. We could probably talk about Leon Fontu saying a little more, but we'll talk about him next week, clearly. So
yeah, I'll say this. If you haven't seen What We Do in the Shadows, watch that as homework for next week's episode of Preacher, because I feel like there might be
some allegories,
tie-in opportunities there.
You've
seen it, right?
Yes.
Okay, good.
It was very good. All right. Once again, you can find more episodes of our podcast at g2tpodcast.com. We're also on TV Time, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, Google Play Music, and more podcatchers. We're also G2T Podcast on Twitter, and you can email us at g2tpodcast@gmail.com. The Midwest Podcast Network has other shows about video games, horror movies, FX's The Alienist, and HBO's Westworld. Find out more about these shows as well as how to support the network at MidwestPodcastNetwork.com. Our theme music is the song All In by The Red Thread, and it is being used under a non-commercial Creative Commons license. That's all for this episode of Gone to Texas. We can't wait to see what next week's episode of Preacher brings, but until then, go forth and speak the good word.
Did you say Preacher Bangs?
I said brings.
Chandler Bangs?
Chandler Bong?
Chandler Bong?
No. I said brings, but it was very weird. It was... The R was kind of missing a little bit. But anyway. Yeah.